France get the win over Ireland in what was, I thought was going to be a runaway for France, but it ended up being quite an entertaining game, especially the second half. I mean, Ireland will take some positives from this game, but overall, it's probably a negative outlook. But let's get right into it. This is my immediate reaction right after the game. France winning 36 points to 14. Now, I did say here that Ireland actually started the game off okay, quite well. I honestly thought France were going to come out firing in the first 10 minutes, and for the first 10 minutes, Ireland did hang in there, but then the early try from France was inevitable. I mean, France were always going to start strong, especially with guys like Dupont, Jalibert, Ramos. I have to give a shout out to Ramos. He was phenomenal tonight. It was always going to be inevitable. Louis Bielbarré starts off where he left off last year. He is absolutely phenomenal. He is just a superstar, and he just finishes tries for fun. He reminds me of a Brian Abana so much, and Brian Abana is one of my favorite players of all time. So a guy like Louis Bielbarré being recognized similar to Brian Abana, you got to give kudos to him. I mean, he is a phenomenal player, and he's just going to get better and better as he goes on. He's only 22 years old. And I was one thing I really realized was some Irish players looked very tired very early on. There were some guys blowing very hard and struggling to chase back or fall back really early on in the game. So that was a massive worry for Ireland. And it was just a bit uncharacteristic. There was a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes and a bit of uncharacteristic phases of play from Ireland. But I will say Prendergast actually did look comfortable. I don't think he was the reason for Ireland losing today. Yes, he did. He made a few mistakes, especially forcing stuff. But when you are behind the way Ireland were, you have to force stuff. And I honestly thought Prendergast today probably played himself into the team again for the rest of the games going forward. He definitely didn't play himself out of the team. So as a neutral looking at Ireland, I did think Prendergast was actually quite good today. He looked quite comfortable. He looked like the guy I see playing for Leinster week in, week out. So that's one positive that Ireland can take from this game. Jamison Gibson Park also, in my opinion, played well. I mean, if you don't have any ruck speed or ruck dominance, it's so difficult for a scrum off or a fly off to really have a good game or stand out. So I think once Ireland started getting that front foot ball in the second half, you could see Jamison Gibson Park and both him and Sam Prendergast looked a lot better, a lot more comfortable. But I have to say, the Ireland forwards in the first half did not help them at all. They were lacking ruck speed, they were lacking physicality. I don't really remember one physical dominant collision from Ireland in the first half, except for one of the Stuart McCloskey carries. One guy from France that really impressed me, Michael Guillard, was all over. I mean, he is a very busy player. He has such a big engine. I think having the likes of him and Charles Olivon on the lock is a bit of a cheat code. I mean, both traditional loose forwards, massive athletes, great at the line out, and that's extremely dangerous for playing against France because they're really good with ball in hand. And France basically had 5 loose forwards on the field at the same time, which is a scary thought. And I thought Charles Olivon and Michael Guillard especially were phenomenal tonight. But I really think giving France the early lead was just like digging yourself into a deep hole that you weren't going to get out of. You just can't give France an early lead, especially by like 2 tries playing in France. You can't come back from that. You're going to have to do something really special. And for a second, I really thought Ireland were going to do something special, but then France just focused again, and they almost lost focus for a little while. And I think the quality of the timing of the passes from France were phenomenal. The timing of some of those passes for France to get guys on the front foot, get guys in space at the perfect time is just so good to see. France really capitalized on nearly every opportunity given to them in the first half. That first half performance from France was one of the best I've seen from them in a long time. Also, thinking of one of the first half tries for Jalibert's try early on in the first half, you're not just going to stop a guy like him from 5 meters out, especially with his running ability. I mean, especially if Ireland themselves had to cover options like Anthony Jalonge off the back of the scrum, with the scrum already turning and making it difficult for France's loose forward to get out and make that tackle. You're not going to stop covering a guy like Anthony Jalonge, Jalibert, Dupont and Louis Bielbarré on the blind side. It's going to be impossible. So I think France were really smart with that try to wheel the scrum a bit. I don't know how legal that was, but they definitely did manipulate the scrum to help them there. But I really think Ireland were just far behind in the start of this game. They just seemed like a different team to what we used to. It seems like they were trying to force things. Things weren't working out for them at all. And I'm not really sure if training in the sunny weather so much negatively affected Ireland. I might think it did. Honestly, it might have, because for a team that usually looks so slick and so quick in these weird conditions, these rainy, wet conditions, they just didn't look fast at all. They didn't look like they were ready to play. It just seemed like they were struggling in the wet, cold conditions, where normally Ireland is a team that thrives in these conditions. They normally have quick ruck speed. They're normally one of the most accurate teams at ruck time with their loose forwards and their locks and their forwards. They're just so accurate normally. They just lacked that, especially in the first half and early in the second half. Ireland looked a bit slow and sluggish, which was very uncharacteristic of Ireland. But I did think Jack Crowley honestly added quite a lot of energy when he came on. I thought the bench made a big impact for Ireland. Thinking of the likes of a Timony, he really stood out for me. Jack Conan coming on. I thought those guys made a big impact, and they could get guys like a Jacob Stockdale, a Stuart McCloskey more into the game. And once those guys got going, once they got confidence, once they got some ball in hand, some good opportunities, they looked much better. They looked much better. I think that's the one positive Ireland can probably take from this game, is that when things actually started to look good for them, when they started playing the way that they can play with some quick ball, playing to their identity. Because in the first half, it seemed like Ireland didn't know what type of identity they were playing with. They didn't know what style was going to suit them. But once they started playing with that pace we know Ireland can play with, they had the forward pack for it. They have the players for it. Once they started playing with that pace and that quick ruck speed, they looked so much better and more dangerous, and they scored some really good tries, and I thought they were going to score more. I honestly thought Ireland were going to at least get into the 20s when it came to points, but unfortunately they couldn't. But yeah, Ireland looked much better in the second half, so that's one massive positive they'll take from the game. And I think Ireland, the bench from Ireland, made a big impact this game. They made a massive impact, and those guys will probably get given an opportunity in the next game. Some guys definitely played their way out of the jersey, or maybe made Andy Farrell rethink some selections. Some guys played their way into the jersey and solidified their place into the team for Ireland. I think for France, this whole squad today was really solid. I mean, all the guys played well. The whole forward pack was dominant. They were quick. Everything was working out for them. Everything worked well with the likes of Dupont and the forwards and the backline. Thomas Ramos was phenomenal. Jalibert was all over. And the centres just made it easy for the backline guys, because they would always straighten, get a half break, get an offload. If they needed them at ruck time, they were there almost like an extra forward in the outside channel. So you have to give credit to the France centres as well, that maybe are some of the unsung heroes. There's a lot of unsung heroes in this France team, and they had a lot of players that really put their hand up and did a lot of dirty work when other guys maybe stood out. So you have to give those guys from France that did the dirty work, that aren't seen as much. I saw you guys and they were really good. So I think it was a much better second half for Ireland, but they're going to have to go back to the drawing board. Maybe some selection changes, maybe just they needed that first 20-minute hits out, or first half hits out, to really find their form, find their feet, find their style, find their identity a bit, because in the first half they just looked absolutely lost. They honestly looked absolutely lost. So worrying signs for Ireland? I don't think so. Look, if you look at Ireland as a whole, they were missing some key forwards. They were missing some key backs as well. They were playing some guys, some combinations that weren't normally there. Some guys that I think didn't perform well, like a Joe McCarthy, Tommy O'Brien. Some of those guys really struggled today, but I will be covering that in the player ratings video coming out after this. I'll be doing an in-depth player ratings for every single player for Ireland and for France. There's going to be some decisions some people might think are a bit harsh for performances like this, where some players made an impact, stood out, tried their best, or tried to get the team on the front foot, and then some performances where players were actually just a hindrance to their team. You have to give them some bad ratings. So the player ratings will be coming out after this. It's going to be in depth, going over every single player that played. But also just looking at France's bench on the other hand, guys like Baptiste Seren were so solid when he came on. I was so happy to see a guy like him get a good opportunity, make a clean break, look comfortable, look confident. I really can't wait to see the likes of Antoine Dupont, Baptiste Seren 1-2 punch for France going forward. I'd love if they could play Baptiste Seren a bit more. I thought Antoine Dupont was really good today. Obviously he wasn't the best player for France, but you can't expect that every week from him. I thought his kicking game was strong off both feet. He was good around the fringes. He made some very good timely passes. He did well to get his team on the front foot, and he did really well to get the ball players outside of him like a Ramos, a Jalibert, a Deportere, a Louis Belbery on the front foot, and giving those guys an opportunity to show what they can do. But I will say, Thomas Ramos now, with those volleys he does, it's just phenomenal. Right now, I honestly believe Thomas Ramos is doing that stuff on purpose. I do think he sliced it a bit, but wow, he is just such a phenomenal player. And if he can keep this form up, right now throughout the whole year, he will be in the conversation for World Player of the Year. He was absolutely phenomenal. My two standout players from France, Thomas Ramos, number one. Number two, Michael Gallard. Obviously, Louis Belbery was phenomenal, but those two guys were just incredible. They were all over, and they were just phenomenal. My standout players for Ireland, In the forward pack, I'll probably have to go for Nick Timoney when he came on. He was really good. He drove the guys forward. He just looked like he wanted to be there, like he wanted to secure his jersey in the team. And in the back line, I'll probably have to go for, people might not agree with this, maybe a Sam Prendergast or a Stuart McCloskey. I think once Stuart McCloskey got his hands on the ball a lot more, he could have shown what he did. He was really good when he got more opportunities. Same for Gary Ringrose. In the first half, I was almost going to come on here and say maybe it's time for them to move on from Gary Ringrose. But in the second half, when he got more opportunities, he looked dangerous. He looked like the guy we know and we love for Ireland. He played like the guy we know. We played like the guy that's been a British and Irish Lion multiple times. But in the first half, I just think the forward pack not getting any dominance, the ruck speed being terrible, and the quality of timing of passes, the team looking like they're not used to wet conditions really affected them. And I think going after this game, Ireland will definitely learn from this. They will start the next game strong, and I fully expect Ireland to bounce back next week. I'm not sure who they're playing next week. I think it's in Italy. It might be Italy, or it might be a weaker team in the competition, and hopefully Ireland can maybe play some of the same players to get some confidence, to learn how to play together, because it's not the same team that's been playing. Yes, maybe the core group is the same, but once you start having props out, some guys injured in key positions, and you plug some new guys in there, they still have to learn how to play together. So I don't think it's time to worry for Ireland, but definitely all credit goes to France. They were phenomenal today, and if they can play like this throughout the whole competition, they are firmly the favourites. And I definitely think after this game that France probably are the favourites going forward. Ireland have a few up next games coming. They have to have a massive win against Scotland. They have to beat England. They have to win all the games from now on, and then they have to hope that France loses to the likes of a Scotland or anyone, or in England, because if Ireland can stay undefeated now and France can lose another game, then they still have a chance. But Ireland just have to go back to the drawing board. I saw Andy Farrell's speech at halftime. It looked like he was really annoyed with the players and how they played. And I mean, he made substitutions early, which just shows that. And I think maybe some players for Ireland were getting a bit too comfortable with their position in the team. They didn't look like they wanted it in the first half, but in the second half, those guys came on and you could see they wanted it. The whole game changed in the second half. And when France started having fun, Ireland capitalised on that. And I think there were some standout players for Ireland. There were some things that would look good. There were some positives to take. Not many. Look, more negative than positive, to be honest. But if you look at it from looking into the future, just putting things into perspective, I honestly believe there's a lot of positives that Ireland can take forward, and I think I would like to see Ireland maybe against the worst team get some more ball in hand, try play a bit more rugby, because when they try to play more rugby, they just look so much better. And I think this Ireland team, when they can play on the front foot, they can be deadly. We saw it tonight. In the second half, they looked deadly in some sporadic parts, but then France were just quality tonight. All credit goes to France. 36 points to 14. It's a bad loss for Ireland. A massive win for France. But yeah, moving on to the next one. We've got Scotland versus Italy on Saturday. It's going to be an epic game. And we are doing a player ratings for this game coming out probably within the next few hours or tomorrow morning, guys. Stay tuned. If you guys do enjoy the content, you do like the full-time reactions, you do like the player ratings, you like the previews, you like all the content, please don't forget to subscribe to help the channel grow. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.